All right, and hello everybody, and welcome back. I'm glad you're here. We're having a discussion. I wanted to talk about the drone. I do talk about robots, but I also have an interest in a drone, and that's the topic for today. And what I'm thinking about is the topic of autonomy, not really autonomy of the person, but autonomy of the drone. And I have a specific purpose for wanting to talk about that. And I just wanted to say hello and welcome, and this is the drone I'll be talking about. I'm glad you're here. I'm going to go ahead. I know they tell me to put me in the video, so I'm going to take a deep breath, pinch my nose shut, and stop breathing and see if I can get myself to materialize. So here we go. Hopefully I materialize. The other thing is I'm gonna hello, welcome. Glad you're here. I'm gonna put my computer glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. All right, here we go. And again, autonomy. A lot of things can be autonomous. I'm talking about autonomy of the drone because I think this is important, and I have a specific purpose for the drone, and that's why I want to talk about autonomy. And right now we're in Keyshot, and this is I realize this is particularly with the current thing that's going on in Ukraine. This might be fighting yesterday's war, but these are HESCO bags. They're full of sand, and I put trusses on top. These are available. They're usually flipped over the other way and used as bridges, but you could put sandbags up here and give yourself a little bit of protection. And here are a couple of these drones inside of this. It has this curve to it so that they don't need a doorway. If an explosion was here, it would not damage the drones. And I will show you a forward operating base. And this is the forward operating base, Delhi in Afghanistan. I understand, again, this might be fighting last year's war, but this is 50 meters, so that's 150 feet. It's not very big. And here I've put in the picture, up here in the corner of the operating base is this hangar facility with these drones in it. And what I wanted to do was take these kind of bases, these kind of isolated locations where soldiers are there, but there's no air combat capability there. If they need air combat help, they just have to call for it and wait and hope. I wanted them to be able to have their own planes here. And if something is going on where they need combat air, at least what these drones can offer, they just run down here, or they go down here with the Humvee and they get in these and they fly off. They have their own combat air operations, but it's flown by people who are at the base. And in order for that to happen, they need to be not really fully trained who can fly anything, combat aviation pilots. They need to be people that were picked up from the base and given this training. And I want this drone to be simple enough to fly, to have enough autonomy of its operations that they can just get in it and fly off. That's the point I'm trying to make. All right, and what we're doing is just recording along. I have gotten here inside this hangar. I asked some of the guys to put a poster in there for me so I could talk about these topics. And Yeah, I'm working through this by getting inside of here, inside of Keyshot, so it takes a little while to navigate in here where you don't get lost in the trusses up there that are the way the camera works. If you back the camera up into the wall, you just see the wall. So that's what keeps happening here. But these are these trusses that I put in there, and this is just, I thought that was kind of cool to have the mannequins, if they would, do my little introduction poster here in the inside the airport. And of course, before we do much more here, I always like to see what Bing has for us. So let's take a look. And this to me, this is the maritime forest in the Cumberland Island Nation. This is the flying the drone as an airplane when it's halfway a helicopter, halfway an airplane, halfway a drone. It's actually halfway something that no one has ever built before. This thing is 5,500 pounds when it is fully loaded and takes off with 600 pounds of fuel and a 1,000 pound payload. So it's a big deal. And this, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the way all the pilots think about this, imagining what this thing would be like. What I'm hoping is, once we get the autonomy straightened out, that it's going to look more like this one, I hope, if we're lucky. Now, isn't that nice? This is the Bristol, England, United Kingdom bridge. And here we are, over here on the dreary, dark, shadowy side of complexity, difficulty, a special kind of drone that actually, the truth is, very, very technical pilots are able to fly it and nobody else. And we're going to walk across this pedestrian bridge over here into the sunlight, the shining, easy, simple happiness of having a drone where almost just about anybody could just get in it and fly off. That is the plan, and we'll do some more technical discussion on this. Of course, saying to Bing, thank you, Bing. What we don't want to do is get down where we aren't on this pathway to autonomy success, and we're make it down to here as if we don't want to fall down into there. So anyway, thank you, Bing. And I do always like to continue to say thank you to the mannequins. Thank you for bringing the poster in here inside the hangar. Welcome. I am glad you're here. Have a good time. We're having a discussion. I do have a YouTube channel. Its name is Patrick Gray. I put my YouTubes on there. I try to make all of these as a YouTube. I do have a website. That's the name of the website. And then there's a menu, and you can go to piston robot. It's not about a piston robot. We're not talking about a robot. And one of the topic areas there is in the menu, discussions not about a piston robot, heavy lift drone autonomy discussions. So that's where we are. And the other thing I do always, and even particularly with a drone, but with anything real that's real, there is a chance that a real structure could hurt somebody. My advice, if you are managing a physically real structure, you should manage it in a manner that is legally allowed and reasonable and safe. And if you can't manage it in that fashion, my advice is do not create it as a physically real item. And we have a mission that we're going to be flying. The military has worked out an agreement with Colorado and Montrose Regional Airport to have a hangar maintenance facility here and some building space to have a office for a aviation command. And we're going to take off from this airport, and we're looking at the issue of the topic of discussion is getting the drone to go up in the air with its drone flying capabilities. And the question is, how high in the air can it go? Now we have here is the airport, and we're going over to the Taylor Park Trading Post, 79 miles. And in the drone is going to be a fully qualified active duty military pilot and one of these pilots that has been training for 3 or 4 months. And they're going to see if they can get the drone over these mountains and put it down on the ground here at Taylor Park Trading Post, and then go up here, this little valley. And you can see down here the elevation is 10,000 feet, but down in here the elevation is 10,000 feet. This is 9,000 feet, and they're going to fly up here to the top of this valley where the elevation is 12,800 feet. And they're going to do that keeping the drone where it's only about 12 feet off the ground, so if anything goes wrong, they can just put it on the ground. And this is a test to see if the drone can do that, and it's also a test to see if these new pilots are able to do something like that. And I'm going to be discussing it. I'm going to be talking about a control panel for doing this. I want to design a control panel that makes this drone easy to fly. Instead of hard to fly, it makes it easy to fly. It makes it so that you don't become intimidated and you don't decide that you don't want to do this. And I'll show you what that control panel looks like. And here is that control panel inside of SketchUp, and we have the mannequin sitting there just to show. And what we've created, there's a simulation that we've created. These are just regular old 4K LED screens, and the reason for doing it this way is something that could be sent, constructed, built, and transferred to an outlying forward operating base. It's not a perfect simulation, but it's not bad. They could put this together themselves. And this one here at the back, it rotates, so they can open it up like a door and go in there and then close it. And I'll go over all of this and how the drone works and how they get it in the air and fly it, but it can't be done in 15 minutes. So I'm going to slow down and go over this much slower. I'm going to make a YouTube. It might be an hour long, and I'll just go through it and show you how I think we could make something that is created for the purpose of autonomy, so that the people flying it do not feel intimidated and they can get it to do what they want it to do. The last thing, I did put it into Keyshot and created an image of it, and I'll show you that image. I'm going to put that on my website where you can download it. It's a 60 megabyte PNG image, and here it is inside what's been created by Keyshot. I just think this is pretty, and I'll go over how all this works. It just isn't possible to do it in 15 minutes. That's the joystick, and that's the side panel. Anyway, that's where we are. She has picked her hand up and flown over to the clock with it, so I've got to stop, and I'll tell you about the YouTube when I get that all put together. I do think I'm going to put a link to that YouTube on my webpage that I showed you.